All systems fire. Now locking on to enemy target. We must take down the battle cruiser. Pew, 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 pew. Oh, pardon me. I was just playing with my DLC. Playing with your DLC? But you're not even playing a video game. How's that possible? Well, with toys like this, it sure is. And this is a contentious topic for Majora T Speaks. I asked you last time what your thoughts were on DLC culture, if you think that there is a perfect model and if you lament it or embrace it. Now, I showed this toy, right? And it wasn't actually this one, it was another Starlink Battleship, but this one came with the game for like $20, which, you know, I hate to go back into like pickup style videos, but that's a deal if I ever saw one. And the way it works is you put this onto an extension on your PS4 controller, and then the second you put it on, it unlocks it in the game, which is completely pointless with this because this is your standard ship anyway. The question is that acceptable? And, you know, I've been wrestling with this. I actually did not answer that at the time because I was trying to figure it out for myself. Like, do I actually enjoy this? You know, I've had amiibos for a long time, but I've never actually connected them to anything because they don't really do anything in the games. This at least gives you a skin in the game. And in addition to that, it also is pretty cool. Like, you get a ship and you get a DLC skin with it. So, you know, although, I mean, obviously, I would like to be able to, like, have a ship that, like, you know, as I, like, control it, it moves where it goes. But, you know, maybe I'm asking for too much. But I want to see what you guys thought. So let's go over some of the comments. Shall we? All right, so let's go in order. I have 3 good comments here. They are quite good comments. Starting with Terry309. I don't think DLC is inherently a bad thing. That's like complaining about expansion packs. I'm all for developers delivering more content to a perfected game for a fair price. That's a novel idea. I know that one of the games that people really like for DLC is Skyrim. That there have been some excellent additions in terms of, I don't know the exact quest, but there was like a vampire quest or something. And it adds content to the game. I know Breath of the Wild does it pretty successfully as well. So, I mean, that's not a bad point. What I'm not a fan of is microtransactions on disc, day one DLC season passes. See, I'm with you there. I have Smash Brothers on the 3DS. And that game is a cesspool of available DLC. Now, I don't know that it was all available from day one, but I know that from the first day that Smash Ultimate released, which I know you really can't complain about not having enough content, they had mentioned Joker as a release. So obviously that could be an easy patch into the game. There's no reason to announce that on like within the first week that, you know, there's going to be a paid for character. And it's really, when you see that, it's almost shiesty. So I agree with you. I don't like the idea of having content available to buy within the first day. Just include it within the full game. I want my game to be complete when I purchase it. Otherwise, I'm pretty much paying for half a game. I still want an expansion pack for F-Zero GX with more content. If DLC was on the GameCube and Nintendo did that, I'd be all for it. See, F-Zero GX just needs to be DLC in general for every Nintendo system ever. Once that comes on the Switch, I think it's pretty much safe to say that they're going to speed past all the competition, but they'll be light years ahead at that point. I just think the whole idea of DLC has been misused. As for games like Starlink, Skylanders, I'm personally not a fan of the idea of having to buy figures or DLC just to access something in the game. Figures should be figures, not electronic toys that connect to games in order to unlock stuff. Okay, I'm with you there. I would like that the extension that connects to the game does something more than just unlocks. Like, there's a purpose to re-hook it up. There's no reason to hook up a ship to Starlink after you've done it once because you've already unlocked the thing. I actually think the idea of amiibos and Smash Brothers is pretty novel, that you can take it with you and bring it over to a friend's house to share your data and then like plug it in when you want to play with them. I don't know that that's been done to a way that it's actually pretty cool, because you might as well just be actually fighting in the game. I think the idea would work well with Pokemon, but what do I know? I suppose you could say the same about trading card games as well. I used to collect trading cards back in the day, but I don't anymore because I realize just how exploitative it is, since you have to buy your way to getting all the good cards with real money. Oh, I miss trading cards. I still have my Pokemon cards. I got my Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I got my Magic cards. Actually, I don't have my Magic cards. I sold them. People used to say Magic was the best game, but I always liked Yu-Gi-Oh. I never really played Pokemon, but the cards look cool. It's a collector thing, so I understand. It amazes me how this idea of collecting figures for games is a fad these days. It seems like it should have been a 90s thing. In this era, it just seems silly to me. The wow factor of having collectible figures connect to electronic devices would have been cool in the 90s, but now it's just meh. We have better things now. I would disagree with you on a personal level there. I think the idea of figures coming back is awesome, because when you go into game stores these days, they're a little bland, and the toy sections almost liven them up. And I really wish that these figures did more, like as you're saying, because then it would be impressive. But with the way it is now, I see your point that it is just meh. But with that being said, like the Pokewalker, right? That was a little accessory that you brought around with you and then did things for you in the game. The Pokewalker was novel, and I don't actually, like, I lost mine a long time ago, and I haven't played Heart Gold in 11 years. But the fact that it did something with your Pokemon in game, outside of game, was pretty awesome. I guess the iPhone would be considered your accessory for a lot of games like that nowadays. Your Pokemon Go. I haven't dabbled with it, so I just don't know. But as a collectible figure, I think the figures themselves need to be on the equivalent of Pokewalker. They can't just be these, like, this plethora of amiibos that are impossible to collect. Not my friend, but a guy that I watch here on YouTube, Arlo, who's pretty popular on YouTube as far as gaming content goes, did a really good video on why amiibos are a problem for Nintendo and just in general. So I would recommend that video to those who are looking for more content to watch. But that's a hearty comment, Tara. You left me a lot to talk about, so hey, kudos to you. The next one comes from Boston Burf, my man, the legend. And he says, the perfect way to do DLC for me is to actually work on it after the game releases. None of this day one DLC nonsense or disc locked content. I also don't believe little things like costumes, weapons, etc. should be DLC. That stuff should just be an unlockable in the main game. DLC should only be for big things like new quests or new maps and or levels. I'm 100% with you there. Again, if the ship that I attached to Starlink did more, I would say that it's a good model. As it is, it's not a good model. I'm with you there. I like the ship. I like the fact that I get to fly around it in the game, but there's no reason I couldn't have just had that from the start. Characters should not be DLC in my mind. I feel like characters are like an extension of the game, and just by locking them out, you're locking out such a little thing that is really not something you should spend money on. It's almost a cheap tactic by the developers. If you're going to pay for something, I'm totally with you. It has to be a map or a level. Like that's actual content there. Let's move on. I don't really embrace DLC culture. I don't hate it, but I do hate the fact that many people will toss money at anything, which encourages slimy things like day one DLC. See, that's what I mean, is that there's a digital culture that we live in and that the gamer world thrives on. And people are pretty reckless with their money when it comes to gaming. I guess maybe it's a collector thing to be frugal and only spend it on games that are physical and will go in your collection, and maybe the occasional download. But, we're very money conscious. Like, with the amount that, like, kids will drop on on software on an iPad, it's scary, especially like these in-game purchases. All that like free-to-play like shenanigans, I don't think it's a good culture. It's not healthy, and it's not sustainable for the gamers themselves, because then you end up playing one game, and we're already so littered with games in this culture that it's going to be hard for developers to come out with like, or people like to develop independent games and even be noticed if all the consumers are putting all their money into one game. So nice point. The last hearty comment here comes from What's on My Shelf. Actually, he has a comment that pertains to the previous table topic video, and it was about whether to restart a game after a hiatus. He said, maybe I should keep a journal, Shenmue style. Funny thing about that, in the other room, I do have a journal for Fire Emblem. I don't do the journal for every game that I play, but if there's major story content that goes on, I will keep the log, because that way it does help me with the narrative. So that's a solid tactic right there, and I do feel that's worth sharing. So props to you. What's on my shelf? Now, Centipede actually came to me and asked for a topic request, and I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to phrase it how I want to phrase it, because I think the way it is going to be difficult for a lot of people to answer. So he asks, topic request, please, how to get noticed on YouTube. Actually, now that I think about that, I don't think that needs to be rephrased rather. Part of my concern with that question was that of the demographic that watches me, nobody really watches me that has such a substantial subscriber base. I'm well aware of that. So it's hard for me to say that any of my viewers can really contribute something to say how to make it big on YouTube, because I can't even speak to that. But the topic itself is interesting, and I do have friends here who watch me that also make YouTube videos and have had some success, some more so than me, some not. So let's make that the topic this week. How do you get noticed on YouTube? Have at it, team. Team T, Team Majora T.